which, oh, thank you, Brian, whoever did that. iRIS is a cloud-based system that enables online application submission and real-time submission tracking. And it also functions as a document repository, providing our investigators with easy access to their submission records and all study documents. Our new platform has so many amazing new features that InfoEd does not have, and is known to the research community for being very intuitive and user-friendly. However, we do know that platform changes like these can feel overwhelming and daunting. So I'm here today to make sure everyone is prepared to move over to iRIS as seamlessly as possible. So my goals for today are to get you all familiarized with our new system, point out some new and improved features, and reiterate the important upcoming dates, including the last day of submission in InfoEd, our conversion period, and our iRIS Go Live date. So our agenda for today is as follows. First, I will take you through the new system, giving you a general overview of the platform. Then we'll get through a new research application. We'll walk through that. I'll show you how to submit and what the post-submission operations look like. Then we will respond to stipulations from the IRB, which is a much easier and much more straightforward process than doing so in InfoEd. And we will submit a form against one of our studies. And typically we would like to hold questions until the end, but because this is a smaller group, I would like to open it up to questions. If you see something that you have a question about, please feel free to ask. You can also put a question in the chat. We do have analysts who are monitoring the chat. So feel free to ask as I move forward through the system. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to my internet browser. Okay, so this is what the iRIS login page looks like. You will use your San Diego State single sign-on credentials to log in for the very first time. So this is just your sdsu.edu email address and your password that you use to log into your email. For the sake of this webinar, I'm going to be operating in our test environment. This is something that none of you have access to because it's for internal purposes, but I encourage you to log into iRIS whenever you get a chance. We have actually been migrating all of your IRB studies over from InfoEd into iRIS for you. So all of your studies should be there waiting for you when you log in for the very first time. And I will say that at this point, it is on you to go in and make sure that all of your study documents that are associated with each of your studies are the most up-to-date documents. So I'm going to go ahead and move over to the test environment. So when you log in for the very first time, this handy dandy tutorial list will pop up for you. And this has a list of 5 different tutorials. One is an overview of the front page of the system, which I will go into more detail shortly. It shows you how to start a new application, where to find latest approved versions of your documents, so your consent forms, your surveys, etc., how to find any IRB approval letters, and how to start a new submission form. So as I said, this will pop in when you log in for the very first time. As you start getting more familiar with the system, start getting the hang of things, you can uncheck this box and it will no longer pop up first thing. But if you want to go back to it, it's located right up here on the right-hand side of the screen. Something else I want to point out while we're over here is this help button. So this help button will give you access to resources for all 3 institutional committees that are now housed in one platform. So if you submit studies to the IBC, the IACUC, or the IRB, you will now go to one place to do all 3 of those things, which is great. So we have it all in one area now. Over here on the left, we have our IBC resources that link straight out to their website. We have our IACUC website, and any and all IRB resources are located right here on the left-hand side. Over here on the far right, we have some general iRIS resources, like our iRIS help page, which links right out to our website. And these are pop-up windows. I'm pulling them down into tabs so you can all see them. So if you find that you're getting stuck, you log in for the first time, you feel a little scattered, I advise that you go to the top right-hand corner of the screen and click on the tutorial, click on the help link. You might find what you're looking for there. And something else I want to point out in the top right-hand corner is the My Profile area. So when you log in for the first time, you can check out this area and go to your account. So your account will have your basic information. And again, this is the test environment, so I've created a fake profile. My name is John Smith. And I have my personal email here, but you can also include additional email addresses in this area. So say you'd rather not have your SDSU email address receive all automatic system notifications, you can add a new email address and direct all communications to that one. And then over here is just general demographic information. If you'd like to put this in yourself, you can, but most of it will not be automatically populated for you when you log in. And then something else I'd like to point out as one of our most exciting features, in my opinion, of the new platform is the fact that your city training documents, given that you registered with City using your SDSU email address, will be linked automatically to your iRIS profile. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to go to my personal account in the production environment because, again, this is a fake profile, so John Smith does not have any city training certificates, but I do. So I'm going to show you in production what this looks like. I'm going to go ahead and log in as myself. I'm going to go right back to the My Profile area, click on My Account, and then over here on the far left, I'm going to go to Training History. And here, my sitting training documents automatically pop up and indicate when I took the course, when the course will expire, and they're automatically linked to my iRIS profile because I use my sdsu.edu email with this. So we love this. You will no longer need to download your city training certificates as PDFs and upload them in the application with everything else. We think this will be a huge time saver for everybody involved. Okay, so now that I've shown you where to access your profile and your city training history, I'm going to bring us back to the home page. And I want to point out there are a couple different ways to do this. You can either go over here to the top left-hand side of the screen and click on the SDSU logo. As you see, this little home button pops up. It'll bring me right back to the home screen. Or I can use the back button that's located in the system. So we strongly advise you use the back button over here rather than going over to the back button in the browser. This back button will function to bring you back to the previous page that you were just on. I know that may seem a little bit obvious, but as we move through the system and I show you additional features, you'll notice that the back button will always be there, but there will get to a point where it seems like you maybe will move forward. You should be moving forward, but you actually use the back button to bring you back. And if that was confusing, I apologize. You'll see what I mean when we get to the application. Okay, so now that we're back home, I'm going to show you all what the home page looks like. So again, this is when you log in for the very first time. You will see all of these panels and featured study operations. So we're going to take it from the top. Over here on the left-hand side, we have all of our featured study operations. So these are very straightforward. This is where you go to create a new study, start a submission form for one of your studies, like an amendment, continuing review, etc. You can view current approvals, submission history, and just view and manage your studies overall. As we scroll down, the first panel that we see is the study assistant. So this is where you can find a study. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and essentially it just opens up a search and find window. You're able to search for studies based on the study sponsor, based on the principal investigator listed on the protocol, by department, etc. So this is great for those of you who have either a large number of IRB studies or who have studies submitted to the IRB, IACUC, IBC, and you don't want to scroll through all your studies, you just want to find something quickly. The Find a Study feature is a great way to do that quickly. Okay, so moving down, we're actually going to skip the task panel because I think it makes sense to come back to it after I've shown you where to find all of your studies in the first place. So we're going to move to the third panel called the study submission status, the in progress studies. So as you can see, I have 2 studies in this area. These are studies that are in progress. So what that means is that I've either finished my application, attached my supporting documents, and sent it off to the IRB, like my Pigs in the Blanket study. So I'm going to go over here to the far right-hand side and click on this Steps button. What this will do, sorry, I clicked on it before I told you I was going to do it. The Steps button will open up the sort of life cycle of the study. So you can see down here my study is currently in pre-review status. So again, what that means is that I've sent it off to the IRB. They have it, but they haven't assigned an analyst to review it yet, nor have they requested any changes at this point. So when your study is in pre-review, this means that you are actually able to retract it if you find, or if you remember after you submit, oh no, I didn't attach my consent form, or I need to fix something on my application. You can retract your submission at this point, make those edits yourself, and then send it back in to us. This is much different than InfoEd, where you used to send in your application, your supporting documents, and then the whole thing would lock and you weren't able to edit it. You'd have to reach out to an analyst, reach out to Justin, and ask us to send it back to you. You don't have to do that anymore when it's in the pre-review stage. You can make those edits yourself. So this is also a huge time saver for you and for us as analysts. So my other study in the queue right here has some incomplete tasks. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up and see what those tasks are. This is my social behavioral study. When I click on expand, I can see in this life cycle diagram that changes have been requested of me. Okay, great. So when we request changes of you in iRIS, it will be similar to how we requested them when we were working in InfoEd. You will still get a modifications required letter sent to your email, and you will still need to log into the system to make those changes, but you'll also be able to see the outcome letter within the system attached to each study. So I'll show you what I mean. Down here, we have our task status. So as you can see, we have two things right here. We have pre-submission and we have IRB. So the pre-submission area, when I go ahead and open this up, we can see timestamps of when I created my initial review packet. So this is something that we will go over when we create an application together. This contains your application, your supporting documents, etc. We can see when this was waiting to be submitted. We can see when I reviewed and applied my sign-off. This is a warning error that I received because, again, this is a fake profile, so John Smith does not have any city training documents. You will get this if any of your study personnel are not registered with their up-to-date city training records, but you will still be able to submit, but this will pop up and the analyst will see it and we'll say, hey, it doesn't seem like this person has their city training documents, so we'll let you know and you'll be able to see it as well. So when I close out the pre-submission, I'm going to open up the IRB task status area, and down here you're able to see when the IRB received the submission, when it was assigned an action of return for corrections, and when it was actually returned to you for those corrections. So as you can see, it took 7 minutes for this to happen. That likely will not be real life. The 10 business day turnaround will still be in effect when we go live in iRIS. But this is a great way to see what's going on with your protocol. If you feel like it's been a few days, you can go in and check on it yourself rather than having to reach out to us and see where it is. So like I mentioned, you will receive an outcome letter with the modifications detailed. You'll also be able to see them by clicking over here and clicking on letters that have been sent to you. So here is a modifications required letter that I received as John Smith. It looks very similar to the ones that we send currently via InfoEd. There's no letterhead, but it'll detail the modifications that are needed for that study that is currently in the changes requested status. And we will return to this when we respond to those stipulations in a bit. Okay, so now I'm going to scroll all the way down to the page to the All Studies area. This is one of my personal favorite areas, mostly because it's now color-coded. I do really well with colors and associations to different designations. As you'll see over here, I have a couple studies that are exempt, one that's approved, I have some drafts, and one that's pending and one that's returned for corrections. So as you'll recall, these are the studies that are up here that are in progress. You can also find them down here in your All Studies area. So these will be studies that you have submitted to the IRB, studies you submitted to the IDC, and studies you submitted to the ICOOC. So they will all be in this area, and they're all studies that you have created and submitted that you are listed on as a principal investigator and that you are listed on as a key study personnel. So even if you didn't create the study, but somebody else listed you on it as a key study personnel, it will populate in this area for you. So over here on the far right-hand side are a variety of actions you can take with each of your studies. So we're going to start with my exempt study. This is my biomedical study. And the first action we have over here is the applications. So when I click on this, it will bring me to any versions of the study application that I have created. So what I mean by that, you'll notice here that my IRB initial application has a version number of 1.1. So when I bring myself over here under this Show Revisions tab, I'm going to click on this folder and open it up. This will show all previous versions of your application. So if you were sent it back by the IRB sent it back to you and asked you to make modifications, the version number will automatically update with each subsequent modification you make to the application. And you'll be able to see a record of that all in one place by clicking on this applications button. So something that is also great about this is that you're able to see when it was created, when it was last modified. So there's timestamps on everything. And then over here, I'm going to show you how to compare them. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to click on this one. So this is version 1.0, version 1.1. And I'm going to hit compare to selected versions. And this will open up in a pop-up window. And right here, you can see the only places that the application was modified were in the investigator's experience section. You can see I added this lovely language here, but it will show you exactly what has been updated when you compare these two versions. And you can see over here on the left-hand side, version 1.0, version 1.1. Okay, so I'm going to bring us back to the All Studies area. Okay, so next I'm going to show you where to find your study documents. So we're going to go over to my expedited study. This documents button will take you to all documents that have been submitted with your study and all documents that have been approved with your study. So when I go ahead and click on this, I'm brought to the study documents area. You're able to search for documents here by approval date or version number or by their title. And down here you can see the outcomes of various documents. For example, my flyer has been approved. It was approved on the 24th. And over here is the stamped file. So whenever you need to access your stamped documents, you can go to the Documents tab and open it up. It'll open as a pop-up window, as everything does. And here is my study flyer with my IRB number, the IRB approval date. It's been stamped. Great. So that's one way to access your approved documents that are associated with your study. Okay, so the next couple of actions I want to show you are the Forms button. So this is something that you can click on when you want to add an amendment to your study, a continuing review, report an event, an adverse event. This is one way to do it, and you can also do it up here as well. As you'll recall, these are our featured study operations. You're able to start submission forms for one of your studies up here. And here are all your studies that will populate in this area, or by going down here and clicking on Forms. So as we move through the system, you will see that there are a lot of different ways to get to the same area and a lot of different ways to perform the same action. So what we really like about this is that it's really up to you, what you feel most comfortable doing, what works best for you. It's a very customizable platform, so we love it. And over here, we have the hide action. This will hide any of your protocols that you maybe don't want to see at a certain time. So for example, this protocol was withdrawn and I don't really want to see that. So I'm going to click hide. This is also a good feature for those of you who have studies submitted to the IBC and IACUC along with IRB. If you only want to see your IRB submitted studies, you can hide your IBC, IACUC studies, and vice versa. The next action we have is our withdraw action. So this button you'll see is grayed out for my studies that have been approved and exempt because those have been given a final determination. So my study that is pending, it's been submitted for initial review. My study that's been returned for corrections, I'm allowed to withdraw these at this stage because the IRB has not issued a final determination. So that's an action that I can take if I decide, I don't want to do this anymore. I can withdraw my study for review. Next is the copy function, which some of you will really like because it will copy your entire study and all study documents associated with that study. For those of you who do similar studies and you don't want to be bothered to copy and paste the entire application again, you can just copy your entire study down here. So this is a really great feature for those of you who are interested in that. And then finally, I'm going to take you to the correspondence area of my social behavioral study by clicking on the correspond button. So this will bring me to all the correspondence that has been sent to me about this study. So you'll see right here, and this is a little bit different than InfoEd. In InfoEd, you did get some system notifications depending on what kind of study you submitted and got approved by us. This administrator notification you will receive when changes have been requested by an analyst. After you receive that notification, you will receive a follow-up email from the analyst. So this is very similar to the InfoEd messages that we've sent. Modifications required, the study number, the study title, and then the date. So this was sent to me by Natalie Hardy, the analyst. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And here is the content of the message. It's an outcome letter notification. And here's all the information about my study. You got the study number, study title, and here it will say attached is the outcome letter for the submission. This is automatically generated. And over here, you have your outcome letter as an attachment on the far left-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. It will be a pop-up window. And then here's my modifications required letter. So this is the same one that I showed everyone earlier when we were in the in progress study area. So like I mentioned, there's multiple ways to see the same information in this system. This will also be sent to your email. So these are the modifications that are required of me at this time. Something I also want to point out in this area is that you are able to create new correspondence relating to the study in the correspondence area. So for example, if I wanted to send an email to some of my study team members, so I would go over here to the recipients button, I would click this, and then automatically the people who are listed as key study personnel on your study will be populated into this area, and you can send them a message in this area. It will go to their email and it will also be in this correspondence area. So this is a great way for you to keep track of everything that you've sent to, say, your study coordinator, the co-PIs on your study. It will all be located in one place, so you don't have to go digging through your email inbox to find everything. Okay. So those are all the actions that you are able to complete over down here on the All Studies area. I'm going to bring us back up to the All Tasks panel. Remember, this is something I said we'd come back to. I felt it made more sense to show you where to find your studies before I show you how to complete some tasks. So you'll see here that I have one task that I need to complete, and it's a submission correction. There's a brief description of this, which is that the IRB returned it for corrections, and we have this little priority button over here. So this is great for you if you have multiple tasks and you're unsure of how to prioritize them. You can set this priority level to low, medium, or high, and you can set a complete by date. So this is good for people who, again, like I said, have a lot of tasks they need to complete, or if they have a study coordinator logging in and completing these tasks for them, they can set the priority and communicate to the study coordinator, this one has high priority, this one's medium, you can take care of this one later. It's just a good way to communicate with people who are working on your study. So when I click on the submission correction, it's going to take me to the pre-review correction form, which is something that we will go over towards the end of this webinar. I don't want to overwhelm everybody with too much information, but when you click on the task, it will take you to it directly rather than having to go through your in progress area, finding the modifications there. This will bring you straight to the correction form where you can complete those stipulations that have been sent to you by the IRB. And we will come back to this later. And then one thing that I do want to point out is that when you set a certain task to high priority, it will automatically populate up here into your by the numbers area as a high priority task. And what's great about this area as well is that it gives you just a quick at a glance, what do I have going on when I log into iRIS? How many submissions do I have in process? 2, I got 1 form pending submission, 1 thing pending my response, and my high priority task that I just designated myself. So this is a great way to just see what you've got going on when you log in for the first time, or well, not for the first time, after you've been working the system for a while, you'll begin to see your by the numbers area, and it's a great way to just see what's going on. Okay, so before I move on to creating a new study, I would like to ask if there are any questions at this point before we get into that.
Can I just chime in that one of the common problems people run into is their pop-up blocker blocks the windows and they're not able to see the new windows occur, and then they freak out and think the system's broken. But in reality, the pop-up blocker is just doing its job. So just if you run into that issue, just keep that in mind.
Thanks, Ryan. That's a really good point. Totally neglected to mention that. Yes, almost everything in here is going to be a pop-up, so be sure you don't have that pop-up blocker enabled.
I also wanted to point out one more thing, Natalie, and that was what will be migrated over into iRIS. And what is migrated over into iRIS is all currently approved projects or exempt projects as we understand them today.
Yes,
So
thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, so all of the projects that we've migrated over to iRIS from InfoEd for you all are the projects that have received a final determination from us or from the IRB. So the studies that you have in progress right now in InfoEd will not be migrated over simply because they have not been issued a final determination. And we will get to the final day of submission in InfoEd towards the end of this protocol, towards the end of this presentation as well. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and begin a new study. So I'm going to go over here to the featured study operations, and I'm going to hit create a new study. And as we walk through this, I'm going to point out the new features that we have in the application and the definitions that we've included, but there will be sections that are very straightforward, so I won't spend too much time on those. I really just want to point out the new features and the way that the application is laid out. It's much better. So we have three options here: biological use authorization application, IACUC, and IRB. Again, all three committees are housed on one platform now. So I'm going to hit IRB and move forward. Okay, so now the application has opened up. We're going to give our title of the study, just a test study, and the date. So this is the full title of my study. Down here, this is a new feature. You're able to enter a study alias that you can use to reference your study. It just allows you to enter an abbreviated version of the study title so you can quickly identify the study. It's totally up to you if you want to do this or not. It's for your internal record keeping purposes. If I was going to abbreviate my study, I would call it TS 731. Again, this is not necessary, but it may be useful for some of you who have really long study titles. So as I move forward through the application, I'm going to hit save and continue to the next section for each section that I want to go to. If you find, you're halfway through the application and you have something else to do, you're able to exit out of the application by either going to the home button, clicking back to bring you back to the home screen. But please remember to save each of your sections before you leave, and it'll save your progress in the application. You can come back to it later. So this section will ask me to list any departments that are associated with the study. So the SDSU General will populate by default. I'm going to go ahead and add my department that I'm affiliated with, my alma mater. And I'm going to be working with a couple faculty members from academic affairs. So I'm going to go ahead and click them right here, hit save, and they'll be added to this area. I'm the primary department, I'm the PI of the study, so I'm going to indicate that sociology is the primary department here. Okay, so in this section, this is where you assign key study personnel access to the study. You'll notice here that I have not automatically been populated into the principal investigator area. So this is just for, if you are creating a study on behalf of someone else and they're going to be the PI of the study, you're able to add them yourself. I'm going to go over here and click Key Study Personnel. I'm going to add myself, Mr. John Smith, by clicking right here. You're also able to see people's city training certificates by clicking this little graduation cap right here. Again, I don't have any because I am fake. And then once you add them to the protocol, the options for each role will pop up. So I'm going to hit Principal Investigator. Once you click this, it'll ask you if the Principal Investigator wants to be included as a contact. So contacts will receive all communications relating to the study. I'm going to say yes because I am the PI of the study, but you can say no if you don't want to receive any communications about your study. And then I'm going to add my coworker, Ryan, and he's going to be a co-PI. So also something I want to point out is that if you are searching for a key study personnel and you can't find them, note that we have two databases here to pull people from. So if you're searching for someone and they are not in the iRIS database, try searching for them in the LDAP database or LDAP directory because they might be there as well. We pulled all the iRIS information from InfoEd, so there may be people who are not in the iRIS database, but they might be in LDAP. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. This section asks about review reliance agreements. I am not going to require one of those for this study, so I'm going to hit no and move forward. Okay, so we're at funding details. My study is not funded, but if it was, I would hit yes. And then all these additional questions will pop up. So that's something that's a little bit different about this application is the logic-based questions. So depending on what you say to any given question, you may see additional sections pop up or additional questions pop up. And something else I want to point out that we're here and the application has opened up a little bit is that you're actually able to go back to all the sections that you have completed in case you forgot to add someone to the study or you actually do require a review reliance agreement. You can go back by section. If you don't remember where something is because this is a newer application, you can click on entire view of the application and it will show you everything that you've done and you can just scroll down throughout the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next section. Okay, so you all will recognize this. This is the Human Subjects Research Questionnaire. This is very similar to the questionnaire in InfoEd, but what's different about it is that there are a few more definitions included. So as you can see down here, we have a couple phrases that are in green font. So these just provide a little bit more context, some more definitions about generalizable knowledge because it is kind of a specific definition. Down here, we've got another couple more definitions about interaction and intervention. Also up here on the far right is a little question mark bubble. So this will give you a little bit more context about any given section that contains one of these question mark bubbles. If you find you're getting stuck moving through the application or you have a graduate student who, maybe this is their first time doing this, tell them to keep their eyes out for the question marks on the far right and for any definitions that they may be able to hover over. We did this because we understand that some of these concepts and terminology can be a little confusing. So keep your eyes out for these. They might answer some questions that you have. So we're going to say yes to all of these so that we can move through the application. Okay, here's the identifier table. This is very similar to the one in InfoEd. I'm going to indicate that we are accessing and recording names and email addresses. And something I want to point out is that the application will not allow you to move on if you neglect to answer something. So I just got an error message because I didn't make a selection here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now I can move forward. So this section asks you to select a review type. This is a new section that we've included in this application in an effort to provide a little bit more context and some education surrounding the kinds of review types under which we place our studies. So if you're a little bit confused about that, no worries. There's some more information over here, about the different levels of review conducted by the IRB. When you click on this, a pop-up window will pop up. So I'm going to bring it down here. This just gives you a little bit more information about how we review all of our human subjects research studies. And if you click on, if you say a study's full board, but it's really exempt, don't worry too much about it. We'll we'll reach out to you and let you know, to select exempt rather than full board, but it's really more an effort to provide a little bit more education and context to everybody. Okay, so under investigators' experience, you will notice that there are only a few options to add for each key study team role. So what I mean by that is that previously in InfoEd, we had everyone provide everybody listed on the protocol, all of their research experience as it pertained to the proposed study. So your graduate students, your undergraduate students, we recognize that many of them may not have any research experience, and that's okay. So we're now only asking for the research experience of the PI, any co-PIs, the faculty advisor, and or the translator or interpreting service that you may use to translate your consent forms and any study documents. And there are instructions up here that explain this in a little bit more depth. But if you're going to be using a translator or a translating service, then we will need to know exactly, who they are and what their expertise is in translating these documents. So I'm just going to put in test here for the sake of this webinar. I'm going to add Ryan here as well. And this asks about a conflict of interest, which I do not have. And we're going to move forward. Okay, so this section asks for the background and significance of your protocol. This is similar to InfoEd, but now these boxes are a little bit different because there's no text limit, which I know has been an issue for some people. And you're able to now edit the text in the box. It's a rich text format, so you're able to bold your text, italicize, change your font if you want, and you can insert hyperlinks and images. So if you find that maybe a diagram would be helpful to describe, an aspect of your study that we might understand better, feel free to use a diagram, feel free to link out to things. We want this to be, a better experience and give you some more creative freedom in these areas. So anything that you see with the rich text options will not have a text limit. And this is the research methods and design section. We have tailored it down a bit. So some of the questions previously from our old application have been condensed a little bit. You will no longer need to answer the risk management sections multiple times. They are down here. You describe your potential risks once and those procedures once. Previously, they were in two different sections of the application. Now, no more. Now down here, I'm going to list all the measures that are used in my study. I'm going to be using a survey I've created. And then you'll see this little prompt at the bottom that tells you to upload these measures when you get to the end of the application. A lot of times we had people list a bunch of measures on their application and then not upload them with the protocol, so we'd have to kick it back and say, hey, can you submit these? We have to see them. So this we're hoping will prompt people to upload those or to remember to upload those when they get to the end. Okay, so the study population section is a little bit different than our old application. So up here, I'm going to be recruiting 100 adults, and I need to pick a designation from this list. So if I'm not going to be recruiting from a vulnerable population, I'm going to need to select general participant in order to progress through the application. So if you don't select one of these, the application will not let you move forward. So I'm going to go ahead and select general participant. I'm actually going to be recruiting 50 children as well, and they will be general participants. Now down here in section 12.4, you'll see the total, and you'll see that it says 0, even though I just put 150 down here. So what you need to do in order to calculate this total is to just hit Save Section, and the total will populate there automatically. And if you get stuck, you can hover over this, and it will just tell you exactly what I just told you. Down here is statistical significance. And right down here is the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So this, once you click on Add New Inclusion Criteria, you're able to either list them one by one, like so, or I'm going to open up the exclusion criteria. You can do paragraph format. So whatever you end up typing here will populate into a paragraph down here. It's really up to you how you want to do it. It will create a line item by itself, but if you would rather do paragraph format, you are more than welcome to. If you want to do line items, whatever works best for you. Come on, there we go. Okay, so this section asks about recruitment. I'm going to be recruiting people with a flyer and via email. This section is pretty straightforward. I will point out the prompt message down here that will ask you to upload these copies of any recruitment language that you'll be using at the end of the application. Be screening people online. This asks you to select the level of risk you believe will be posed to participants. I'm going to hit minimal risk, but if I wasn't sure, then I could come over here and find out some definitions. Okay, this section asks for informed consent, so you will need to explain to us how you intend to obtain informed consent. What's different about this compared to our old applications is that we now link out to all our informed consent templates. So oftentimes I sent modifications required letters back to our PIs, linking the consent form templates, but here they're just linked already in the application. So feel free to click on them if you're not sure what you want to use. Over here on the far right, we have some more information about waivers of documentation, alterations of consent, and broad consent, because we know that those concepts may be a little confusing. And sometimes what happens is people will request a waiver of documentation with a signature not required simply because they don't want to get a signature from their participants. But there's actually specific criteria under which you can request the waiver. So we've included these criteria here. When you click on this option, you will need to pick these criteria that you are requesting a waiver under. And same with a request for an alteration or complete waiver of informed consent. You will need to attest that your study meets all the criteria. So those are just some things that are a little bit different about this application compared to our previous one. I'm going to go ahead and select comprehensive written. And my consents and assent forms will not be translated into a foreign language, but if they were, so say if I was using a translator or interpreting service, I would hit yes. And then I would get a bunch of new questions that would pop up. So I would pick the language that I'm translating my things into. I would acknowledge that there will be no deviation from our translation of informed consents policy, which if I wasn't sure about that, I could click on it and it would take me directly to that policy. So I'm going to say no to this question to make those go away. Hopefully. There we go. Okay, and because I said I was recruiting children, I'm going to indicate I'll be getting documentation of assent. This does not apply, and we're going to move forward. Okay, under research setting, we ask you to describe all the location studies where your research will take place. Please include the physical location as well as online or virtual. So if you're going to be holding interviews over Zoom, we do ask that you indicate this below. So if I were holding interviews over Zoom, I would just say Zoom. And there is a text limit in these boxes. Some people tend to get really descriptive, which we appreciate, but you can just put the general building on campus if you're going to be recruiting at SDSU. Just put the building. If you're using Zoom, put Zoom. And we're not going to be traveling to another country, so I'm going to hit no and move forward. Okay. Under payment incentives, I'm going to hit none because I'm not going to be paying my participants, but we did include a little bit more information over here about what compensation is compared to reimbursement, incentives that are greater than $600, some more information about that, and then some more information about raffles and lotteries. We have had people come to us and say they want to do a drawing, and we've had to inform them that there are very strict rules surrounding lotteries and drawings in California specifically. So we've included the California code that addresses lotteries and drawings here. It's extremely long, but we wanted to provide a little bit of extra context for people who indicate that they will be doing a drawing. We'll have you describe how that will be conducted. So it's just in an effort to provide a little bit more education. We're going to say none. Okay, this is the data management section. This is very similar to the old application, so I'm just going to move through it. So it's a little slow today. All right, there we go. Okay, so now I've finished the application. I got a notification that the system has translated to the initial review submission packet and my application has been attached. So this is a new phrase that we will be using moving forward when we go live with iRIS, is the initial review submission packet. So this packet contains your application and any supporting documents that you will upload with your application after you've completed it. So now I get to move through the whole packet by hitting save and continue. Here it will confirm that I've attached my study application here. I'm able to go back and edit it or view it to make sure that everything is good to go. So I'm going to bring us back to it to show you how to do that. Once I click edit view, it will bring me back to the entire application. I can open up an entire view of the application to see everything all at once. Hopefully. My computer's working really hard today. Okay, we're going to bring back to sections, see if that works a little better. So I can move through the sections as I showed everybody earlier. Want to make sure that everything looks good. Okay, great. So now, what if I get to the end, data management? There's not really a place for me to move forward. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit back. So this is what I meant earlier when I said when you get to the bottom of something and it seems like you should be able to move forward and there's no button to move you forward, trust that the back button will bring you to where you need to go. Make the back button your best friend. So I'm going to click it and it's going to bring me right back to where I was. So now I'm going to save and continue to the next section. This is where I would attach all my required consent forms. So the consent forms actually have a separate section than all of your other supporting documents, which I will show you momentarily. I'm going to title this my consent form. And right here, I'm going to click to upload the consent form that I want to submit. Here, I'm going to click category. This is a comprehensive written consent. The language is English. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So now you'll see the consent form has been attached. It's version 1.0, just as my initial review submission packet is. I'm able to view the document to make sure that it is actually the document that I wanted to submit. It will come up as a pop-up window. Perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for. So now I'm going to hit save and continue to the next section. This will be where I attach all of my supporting documents that are not consent forms. For example, my recruitment language. So as you'll recall, I said I would be using a flyer, an email recruitment document. So I can do that one by one by adding a new document, just as I did the consent form. Or I can add multiple documents at the same time. If I have 20 documents and I don't want to do one by one, I can go over here and add them like this. I'm going to add my flyer. And then I'm just going to title them. Here I have to manually put in my version number. So because I want everything to be the same, I'm going to indicate this is version 1.0. This is my flyer. My screener. Oh, and it wouldn't let me move forward because I forgot to put my version number. So it will stop you if you forget to do something. Okay, and then here's where I would add my measures used for the study, so my surveys, interview guides, etc. Any applicable documentation, if there was anything originating from foreign interest, this doesn't apply to me. So not all of these sections will apply to any given study, but they're all there for you. So I'm going to hit save and continue to the next section. This section, it says additional training groups might appear that are not applicable to your protocol. So if you have studies that have been submitted to the IACUC or IBC, they might pop up here and say that you may need to take some extra training. But if they're not related to the IRB, you do not need to worry about this area. Okay, so now the entire packet has been completed. I'm going to go ahead and hit sign off and submit. So now I'll be instructed to sign off on the submission. Okay, so here I am now presented with all of the documents that are contained within my packet. So I have my initial application, I have my consent form, my flyer, and my screener. So something I want to point out here before I save my sign off and send it off to the IRB is the fact that you're actually able to create a PDF packet with the documents that you have submitted. So this is a really great feature for those of you who need to, compile all your documents and send them off to, perhaps another institution if you're going to be relying on them, or they're going to be relying on you if you have an interinstitutional agreement, or not an interinstitutional agreement, but if you're working with another institution, you can download all of these as a PDF and send it off to them. So the way that you do that, if you want to include everything in the PDF packet, you go over here to this little button and it will select everything. If, say, you only want your application, your consent form, you can just select each of the documents that you want to download into one PDF. Okay, so down here, I'm going to hit approve because I approve the submission as the principal investigator. If you are a graduate student or you are a faculty advisor on a graduate student's protocol, when the graduate student gets to this point, it will route directly to the faculty advisor. So if you were the faculty advisor, you will receive the submission and you will be the final approval. Just as it was in InfoEd, you were the faculty advisor, so you were responsible for the conduct of that research, so it will come to you to sign off. Okay, so once I hit save sign off, it is off into the ether and it populates automatically down here in the in progress area. So you'll see this is the study we just created. It is in pre-review status. So that means the IRB has it. Nobody's been assigned yet to review it, but we've sent it off. We're good to go. If we forgot to do something, we can hit retract and pull it back and make edits or add documents. Okay, so that is how we create and submit a new application. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to respond to stipulations and how to create and submit an amendment for one of your studies. But before I get there, I wanted to ask if anybody had any questions, comments, concerns at this point. I know I'm moving relatively quickly. We have a lot to cover, but if anyone has any questions now, please feel free to ask. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, let's move on to responding to stipulations, which I promise is going to be so amazing. So there are a couple ways that you can access these stipulations. As I mentioned earlier, down here, so the study we're going to be working on is a social behavioral study. So over here, I have some incomplete tasks. When I open these up, I can go down here to the IRB, and it says, IRB returned the submission for corrections, 9:50 a.m. today. I can go here to complete these corrections, or I can scroll up here, go to my tasks, and click on this. It will bring me directly to those stipulations. So we're going to go there from here. And this is what you'll see when you go into the system to respond to these stipulations. So right now, you'll see this. It says the current round is round 2. So round 1 was the first time that I submitted my submission. Round 2 is when it comes back to me and the IRB has requested changes. So you'll see everything that is associated with your submission, And when you scroll down, you get to see the first stipulation. So this is stipulation 1 out of 3. The description is to add names to the PHI table and indicate whether they will be accessed, recorded, and or disclosed. Okay, classic stipulation. I've sent this off many times. But down here, it'll show that my action has not yet been completed, because I haven't completed yet. But right over here, the component is linked to the stipulation. So what that means is that I, as the analyst, have linked the exact section that you need to edit for the stipulation. So you'll see the section of the application that needs to be edited is identifiers, and this is the question that you need to change. So when I go over here to the far right, I can hit revise existing. What that will do is it will take me directly to my application, confirming that I'm adding a revision to this application. So once I hit confirm, I will be brought directly to the area that the analyst has linked the stipulation to. Here we are. PHI table. So you don't have to scroll through the application. You don't have to find and search. You can click just directly on the stipulation and address it in the application. So, and here it is again. Add names to PHI table, indicate whether it would be accessed, recorded, and disclosed. Cool. Okay, I'm going to add them right now. Where are they? There they are. And these will be accessed. So after I've done that, I'm going to hit Save Section. And this, it will still say modifications required. Don't fret. Don't be scared. You guessed it. We're going back. We're going back to our stipulations form. And now we're going to scroll down. And we know that we just edited it. We just added names to the application. Another good way to tell that the application has been edited is to look at the version number. So as you'll recall, version 1.0 was the very first application. Version 1.1 is now the application that I just edited. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit Complete Action. I can also compare the application versions here just to be sure that that is what I did. So when I click on this, again, pop-up window, so let me bring this down, it will show the exact edit that I just made. So it's a good way to check your work. You know, if you feel, I don't know if I actually did that, let me just go compare these real quick to make sure that that's done. I did it. Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and hit Complete Action. And now the action status has changed to Action Complete. So we're green. We're good to go. I'm going to scroll down right here to Do you accept the stipulation? I'm going to hit Yes because it's something I accept. And right here, I'm going to provide a brief explanation on how I address the stipulation. I'm just going to say added names. And now we move on. So stipulation 2 out of 3 asks me to detail the research experience of the co-PI as it pertains to the proposed research. So again, now I'm going to move back into this area, and you'll see here that there isn't a direct link to click on this like there was up here. So I'm going to go in and click on the application in this manner, and it will bring me right to that stipulation. So I'm going to show you that again because it can be a little confusing. If you'll remember up here, there was a direct link to click on that stipulation, but now that the application has been edited and it's in version 1.1, I just click directly on the application under the stipulation and it will bring me right there. So I'm going to, oh, I didn't even add Justin here. So I'm going to add Justin here. He's my co-PI and he has great experience. So now I'm going to hit Save Section. Oh, what did I do here? Oh, it's not obtaining informed consent. I'm going to hit Save Section, and then I'm going to go back to my stipulations area. And then same thing as I did up here on the first stipulation, I'm going to say action is complete. I accept the stipulation, and I'm going to say experience added. Okay. Finally, we're at stipulation 3 out of 3. The description is that the flyer is missing from the submission. Please include this document for review. Okay, great. So I'm going to go right over here to the action, and I'm going to add the document that is being requested of me. So it will show you all the documents that are already associated with the submission down here. Obviously, since my flyer has not been updated or uploaded, they're asking for it. I'm going to upload a new document that's not on this list. I'm going to indicate that it is a flyer, hit save. And now the action has been completed automatically. I'm going to indicate that I accept the stipulation and say flyer attached. Okay, so now I've reached the bottom of the page. Those are the 3 stipulations that I needed to address. I'm going to go back up here and hit Save Section, and then save and continue to the next section. This will bring me to the end of the form. It will show you a very similar sign off and submit box as it does for the application. I'm going to hit sign off and submit. And same thing, approve it as the PI, save my sign off. And now my corrections are being routed back to the IRB to review. And then I can see them back down here under my in progress area. Okay. So the last thing we're going to do together, and I appreciate everybody's attention, is we're going to create and submit an amendment for one of our studies. So like I showed you earlier, you can do that down here by clicking on Forms, starting a new submission, or you can do it up here by clicking Start a Submission Form for one of my studies. So multiple ways to do the same kind of thing. So we're going to do this exempt study. I'm going to click on the study dashboard, open up the IRB amendment form. This is starting a new submission. And then this brings me to the amendment form. So it looks very similar to the application, gives us some instructions about amendments, and we're going to hit save and continue next section. Here you will be asked to indicate the study contact if you would like. It's not a required field. But what's new is the study status. We now ask you for that. This is a great way for you to, for record keeping purposes, and also for us to understand where you are in your study's life cycle. So I'm going to say active non-enrolled. Move on to the next section. So you'll notice here that there are quite a few more options to select. Previously, we only had, I think we only had 4 or 5 on our old amendment form. Now we have quite a few different options for you to select, and you can select multiple. And so what we're going to do, we're going to change the incentive, and we're going to add a research site. And so what this question asks if the changes affect the procedures, costs, or risks of the participants. So because I'm changing the incentive, this changes a procedure and changes something that will need to be changed in the consent form. Participants do need to be notified of the incentive amount they're going to receive. So I'm going to hit yes, and I'll be prompted to revise the informed consent form and the initial application. So down here, you will be asked to briefly describe the proposed changes and include the rationale for these changes. So if we get amendments in and they just describe, and the PI just describes the changes but doesn't give us a reason as to why they want to implement these changes, we will kick it back. So please ensure that you describe the rationale for the proposed changes that you want to make to your study. Okay, so here is where I would attach the application associated with my protocol and make the changes that I am explaining that I'm about to make. So over here on the far right-hand side, this is the application. You'll see that it's version 1.0, so it has not yet been edited. So I'm going to go over here to the far right and click Add a Revision. This will ask me to confirm, and then it will bring me directly to the study application. So now I get a notification that a new study application has been published. I'm going to hit Convert to the new form. Okay, so what I decided to do was to change the incentive. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to indicate, and I'm going to give everyone $100. I'm going to hit Save Section. And then I also said I was going to change the research settings. So I'm going to add a new row, hit Save. Okay, and so as you'll recall, I needed to say, or I indicated over here in the amendment changes that the changes would affect the procedures, costs, or risks to participants. So I must revise the informed consent form and the initial application. Just revise the application. So now I've revised my consent form outside of iRIS, so I'm going to attach it here. And move forward. Okay, so now I'm brought to the sign up and submit page. The form has been completed, and I'm going to hit sign up and submit. So it's very similar to what the application looks like. Once you get to this area, you'll know that you've done it correctly. I'm going to hit approve and save my sign off. And now my amendment form is in the in progress area. I can track where it is. I can retract it because it's still in the pre-review status. And I can view details of the actual submission right here, and we are good to go. Okay, now that I've taken you through everything that I wanted to in iRIS, I'm going to move back to my PowerPoint so we can talk about some key dates. Let me just move through this agenda real quickly. So like I mentioned earlier, you all have access to iRIS at this point. I encourage you to log in, poke around, make sure that all your study documents are up to date when you log in. As I mentioned, we are migrating all studies over that have been approved or been given an exempt determination from InfoEd to iRIS for you. but it is on you to make sure that your study documents are up to date and or recent. And speaking
Wait,
of data,
Natalie, we can't see your screen.
oh, my bad. Thank you for letting me know. So this is the login to iRIS link. Like I said, please log in, make sure your study documents are up to date. We've migrated all of them over for you from InfoEd. And here are the important dates relating to rollout. I will send these all to you in an email after the webinar ends. They're also posted on our website, but I wanted to go over them with you all in real time. So August 15th is going to be the deadline to submit all active InfoEd applications and forms by midnight to ensure a timely review. So what this means is that if you need to submit a new study, do it as soon as possible. If you know that you're going to be adding someone to your study or you need to make some changes to your study, submit your amendments sooner rather than later, because after August 15th, we will not be accepting any new applications in InfoEd. September 1st is when InfoEd will be deactivated, so you will no longer be able to access InfoEd to look at your studies or see any study correspondence. Like I said, your data for your existing approved or exempt studies have been migrated to iRIS migrated over to iRIS for you, but after September 1st, you will not be able to access InfoEd. And then from September 1st to October 1, we will be in a conversion period. So my team and I will be working to move all of this data over to iRIS for you. October 1st, 2024, iRIS will go live as a new and improved protocol management system for all SDSU IRB protocols. So during this period of between September 1 and October 1, you will be able to access iRIS to draft new submissions, but we won't be accepting or reviewing them. So it'll be a conversion period. After October 1 rolls around, we will start reviewing and issuing determinations for all the studies that have been submitted in iRIS, but it won't be until after October 1st. So please keep that in mind. And again, I will send these to you in an email when this meeting concludes. Okay, so now if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. I appreciate everybody's time and attention as we walk through this. I know it was long and there was a lot to learn. I didn't cover there were things that I didn't cover that you will discover on your own when you log in for the very first time. But yeah, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask.
Can we make changes within iRIS right now, or do we have to wait?
To any studies in iRIS?
Yeah, so since you've already ported a lot of them over, can we make edits or add staff or anything like that right now within iRIS, or do we have to do that in InfoEd?
Ryan, do you know the answer to that question?
I think it's very case by case, but in general, we are accepting changes in iRIS. But yeah, it'd be best if you ran them by us first, to see if it's something we can do administratively or if it's something that needs like a full board review of, but in general, if it's something we can do administratively, then yeah, you can pretty much do it right now.
Yeah.
I want to add to that, though. All right, Ruth. I would say that if you need something prior to going live, October 1st, that you achieve the deadline of August 15th. So it's based on, because we will not review submissions in iRIS at the same time we're still in InfoEd. And what we'll be doing in September in InfoEd is cleaning up all those things that were legitimately submitted until August 15th. There's a bit of a lag to get that done. We will get them in, anything that's approved or exempted, we will get them into iRIS. But I wouldn't want you to do something in iRIS and miss a deadline, or your enrollment was going to be changing in some way. And you want people to be working on the project. You said like adding people. We will not be officially reviewing anything in iRIS until after October 1st.
So basically between August 15th and October 1st, if we have, say, new graduate students who are going to be on a project, we won't be able to add those during that period or add additional flyers for approval or anything small like that.
And then
Is
I
that
would
correct?
fall back to a case by case basis. How long can you go without the change? These are things for you to weigh. How long can you go with the understanding that they wouldn't be able to actually be helping, if it's personnel, the flyers wouldn't actually be able to be used. So yes, there is this lag that you will have to plan for.
Okay.
All right. Is there anybody else who has any other questions? Okay, well, if you come up with anything, you can always email one of us. We will post this recording on our website for you to revisit. And we do have a couple other, well, not a couple, we have 8 more webinars coming up. So if you know of any other faculty, PIs, students who would be interested in attending one of these, please feel free to pass the word on. And I thank you all again for coming. I appreciate you sitting through this and being an attentive audience. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.